Welcome to Masonic Authors Guild International's podcast, The Wide Masonic World. Hello, I'm Mark Tabbert with Robert Cooper. Professor KENNYO ISMAIL graduated from the University of Brazil in 2006 and earned an MBA from the School of Administration and Marketing. He is editor-in-chief of the Journal of Science and Freemasonry, the first academic scientific journal dedicated to the study of Freemasonry in South America. He was a screenwriter and guest host of the documentary Brazilian Freemasonry, a 200-year-old secret revealed, produced by Ilisa Films in 2023. He is also the author of the blog No Esquadro and several articles published in several Masonic journals and websites in Brazil and other countries, as in the journals of the Philalethes and the Masonic Society. He was a technical reviewer and prefaced the Brazilian edition of the book Freemasonry for La People, 2015. Since a boy active in Demole, Professor Ismail has participated in many Masonic organizations, both serving as a Master of the Lodge and a 33rd degree in the Scottish Rite, and serves as Grand Librarian and Grand Secretary. Professor Ismail's paper today, we discussed not a true history of Freemasonry in Brazil, but rather the current state and statistics, and from a marketing point of view or an MBA point of view, where Brazilian Freemasonry is today. We will, however, be asking him a few history questions for some context and to assist our listeners who are less familiar with South American Freemasonry. Welcome, Professor Ismail.
Hello, Mark. Hello, Robert. It's a pleasure to be here.
Before I begin, I beg your pardon for all my future poor translations and dreadful pronunciations of any and all Brazilian Portuguese. And I will forgive you for any of your trouble you may encounter either with American or Scottish English. So without too much details or genealogy, could you provide some background to the listeners and some context to this quote that you have on page 1 of your paper? Quote, "The Grand Orient of Brazil was achieved through the division of the Lodge Comercioso et Artes and Eldado de Ouro into 3 lodges. Thus, it was possible to found a Grand Lodge, which had José Bonifacio as its first Grand Master, followed then by the Prince Regent Peter, who on September 7, 1822, would declare the independence of Brazil, becoming Emperor King Peter I, and who would then soon close Freemasonry on suspicion of conspiracy with the support of José Bonifacio, the first Grand Master," unquote. First, why were there 3 lodges that had to be created? And second, why did you receive royal support, but then was followed by royal suppression of the craft?
That's an interesting question. Brazil was a colony, a Portugal's colony, like U.S. was a United Kingdom colony. We had a lot of tribes, people movement to try to independence before 1822. But in sometimes the Freemasonry works to the independence before 1822. So the king of Portugal has had a law against Freemasonry in 1818 because a revolution in the northeast of Brazil, trying to independence to Portugal. So Freemasonry was prohibited here until 1821, when was created the first lodge, Commercial Arts Lodge, in Rio de Janeiro. So they need to royal family support to work Freemasonry legally here in Brazil. And the first steps was to initiate ministers, nobles, and after this to invite the Prince Peter to be a Freemason. And it's a tradition in Freemason until that century to the king if he is a member of an organization, he needs to be the president of that organization. So the first Grand Master was the first minister of Brazil, José Bonifácio. And when Dom Pedro, the first king of Brazil, uh, he was prince until now, he was initiating information. He take the malhete, he take the Grand Mastery, and José Bonifácio lost the post, the the office. So the Freemasonry needs to be create the first Grand Orient, the first Grand Lodge here in Brazil, and people create people think today it's because the process of independence was there, happened in that time, and Freemasonry needs to wants to be part of it. So uh, the participation of the royal family was very important to 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 be part of the independence process. Uh, we know the Masonic rule from England. We need to have three lodges to have a Grand Lodge. So that first lodge had 90 members, and they decide to divide that lodge in three to to create the Grand Orient of Brazil. It's an organization of more than 200 years today, and that everything starts information here. Uh, Without Masonic support of other countries, with members, sometimes some members was enjoying Freemasonry in Portugal or France, because we didn't have here universities in Brazil. People went to Europe to study, and after returned to Brazil, and the Freemason come to Brazil in this scenario. Everything was initiated in this way. But Mark, it's important to say, because this relation of Freemasonry with revolutions before the independence, when we did the independence here in Brazil, the king, one of the first steps of the king was to close Freemasonry. He was the Grand Master, and he decided, with the first minister's support, to close it to Freemasonry, because he was afraid about Freemasonry and try to do a new revolution about Republican, about take off the royal family of the power.
This podcast is for educational purposes and perhaps entertainment. While the Masonic Authors Guild International provides the most accurate information possible, listeners use the information at their own risk. This podcast and its contents are Professor KENNYO ISMAIL's and Magi's property, as are all the opinions and information it presents. Professor KENNYO ISMAIL's, Robert L.D. Cooper's, and Mark A. Tabbert's views and opinions within the podcast do not represent nor speak for Freemasonry, any Masonic organization, their former or current employers in any way, shape, or form. Magi, Ismail, Cooper, or Tabbert will not compensate you in any way whatsoever if you ever happen to suffer an inconvenience due to the information herein contained.